So let's just go ahead and add you Bitcoin people to the mix. You're stupid. You're going to lose your money. Be pissed at me.
A few moments later.
Hey everybody, this is Dan and you're watching Bitcoin Reactions, the YouTube channel where I react to people talking about Bitcoin on the internet. Today I'm going to be reacting to a Dave Ramsey video from 2014 titled, "Is Bitcoin a Good Investment?" I'm very excited to see what he has to say. So let's go ahead and dive right in and see what Dave Ramsey has to say about whether Bitcoin is a good investment.
In the wild, wild west days, Dodge City days of the Western American frontier, we had tremendous problems up until really the early 1900s with the banking system.
So right away, Dave is saying that in the old Wild West days, we used to have a lot of problems with the banking system. And so far, he is absolutely right. In the Old West, this is actually really interesting. We used to have these banks and they were called wildcat banks. Essentially, the way that they worked is that each bank would issue its own unique currency. So if you had Butch Cassidy Bank, they would issue Butch Cassidy dollars. And each of those dollars that were issued by these wildcat banks was supposedly at least backed by a certain amount of gold or silver. Now, what's really interesting is that those wildcat banks actually had a lot of issues. And as you can imagine, a lot of times when the banks said that their dollars were backed by gold or silver, there wasn't actually any gold or silver backing the banks. And that caused a whole host of problems. So already Dave is off to a really interesting start. No Bitcoin yet, but I'm glad he started talking about wildcat banks because that is actually an absolutely fascinating topic. And I want to see where he's going with this. So let's move on and see.
And so if there was ever a question of the solvency of the bank, a question of the way the bank was being run, there would be a run on the bank. And people would run in and get their money out because they knew there was some money in there. And if they got theirs out, it didn't matter because somebody wasn't going to get their money if the bank collapsed. And of course, a run on the bank pretty much ensured that the bank collapsed.
Here, Dave is actually 100% accurate. These wildcat banks, they had bank runs all the time. They went under. If you don't know what a bank run is, that is essentially where people start to get really nervous that the banks don't actually have the gold or silver that they say that they have. And what happens is people will stand in line and take all of their banknotes that are redeemable in gold or silver, and they'll hope to be one of the first ones to be able to actually get the gold back while they still have gold in the bank. It's absolutely one of the most interesting parts of American financial history, and nobody ever really talks about it, so I'm really glad that Dave is kind of educating everybody about the old wildcat banking system in the American frontier. Absolutely fascinating. I would recommend that anyone go and learn more about that because it's a fascinating topic.
Of course, we ran into the same thing heading up into the Great Depression, and the government decided to stabilize our banking system to form the FDIC.
Dave is still absolutely right here. If you don't know, the FDIC, it stands for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Basically, what it is the banks all pay money, and if a bank ever goes under because they don't have the funds to give to their customers, the FDIC will step in and give the customers of that bank a lot of their money back. Right now, the rules are that the FDIC will give $250,000 back per account. So the FDIC, it's really important. All banks have it, and it's one of the things that stabilizes our financial system right now.
But if you put money in a bank in a foreign country, you don't have that. Unless that foreign country has some kind of a banking system that's or insurance system that ensures the stability of that lender or that exchange.
So I'm not really sure where Dave is going with this. Currently, 112 different countries have something similar to the FDIC. So for the most part, as long as you're in a major country, this is something that people don't really have to deal with.
And if you put money in a foreign currency, meaning if you buy the foreign currency, if you use your dollars to buy euros, or your dollars to buy yen, or your dollars to buy whatever other currency there is, the peso, whatever it is, then what you are doing is you're saying that you're going to play the field, you're going to speculate that that currency is going to become more valuable than the dollar.
Yeah, so Dave is still right. Basically, he just explained what the Forex markets are, Forex meaning foreign exchange. And the Forex markets are some of the biggest markets around the world where people are buying and selling each other's currencies. So many people are in the Forex markets. We're talking retail investors, institutional investors, even governments buy and sell currencies. And what Dave said, which is accurate, is that when you buy a currency which is not the US dollar, what you're doing is you're essentially making a bet that that currency will go up in value relative to the dollar. So Dave, he's right. Let's go ahead and continue on.
And you're betting, really, when you're doing that, you're speculating, gambling in a very real sense against the American dollar. Because there's no rhyme or reason for this, because all of a sudden a government can decide to flood its currency. And in America, we always call that quantitative easing, where we just dump currency into the market, and it makes the dollar, it dilutes the value of the dollar.
Good job, Dave, on explaining quantitative easing. I think he just explained it very, very accurately. Essentially, what he said is that governments have the ability to print a whole lot of money, and oftentimes it results in that currency collapsing and becoming less valuable. Pretty much every country in the world does this. The United States, for example, they printed $5 trillion during COVID as part of quantitative easing. A lot of other countries did very, very similar things. And that is the majority of the reason why there was so much inflation right after COVID. I really like the way that Dave is saying this too. I think he's kind of explaining that other countries are probably worse. The United States, despite us printing $5 trillion of money during COVID, and we print money every year, but despite all of that, we actually manage our quantitative easing better than almost every country in the world. So even though we're absolutely terrible at it, we're still the best, and we do it better than every other country. And this is actually one of the important things that Bitcoin solves. The way that Bitcoin works, it has a predefined monetary policy. Basically, what that means is that Bitcoin will never be devalued, but overall, really good explanation of quantitative easing. So right now, to me, it looks like Dave is setting up the context for why Bitcoin is important and why Bitcoin is a good investment.
And they try to do it at a pace that doesn't create big ripples, but other countries are not nearly as sophisticated, and so they can destroy the value of a currency.
So Dave is continuing on with his explanation of quantitative easing, and this is something that's really, really interesting, and a lot of people don't know this, but the average lifespan of our currency is only 35 years. In my lifetime, there have actually been over 100 different currencies that have failed or disappeared. If that sounds super surprising to you, that was actually super surprising to me too. Obviously, a lot of these currencies went away for different reasons. Some of the currencies that have gone away in my lifetime, I actually have a little bit of a list here, include the German Deutschmark, the Italian lira, the Austrian-Hungarian krone, the old Russian ruble, the old Czech koruna, the Malawian kwacha, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. The fact that so many currencies die all the time, what that really helps to illustrate is that for most people around the world, having your investment in cash or in money is actually really bad and really dangerous. Whenever a currency is only valuable because it's backed by a specific government, there will always be risk that the government goes away and that currency no longer becomes valuable. So the solution is to have a currency that is not backed by government, that is backed by something else. That is one of the reasons why Bitcoin is actually really special, because it's not backed by government. This means that whenever a government goes away, Bitcoin doesn't care. It will still be valuable regardless of which government is in power. A lot of people in the United States, it's hard for them to understand that currencies are so volatile and go away all the time because the dollar feels so stable. But that's not actually true. The dollar as we know it is actually only 54 years old. In 1971, Richard Nixon ended the Bretton Woods Agreement, and what that did is that took the dollar off the gold standard. And in that 54 years that the current dollar as we know it has existed, it's lost over 90% of its value, and that has resulted in a lot of pretty bad side effects. So right now, Dave is setting up a really good argument for why something like Bitcoin needs to exist. I am really excited to see what he says next. It really feels like he understands the issues with the current financial system, which I am impressed with actually. I think he's doing a really good job explaining everything. So maybe he's secretly holding like millions of Bitcoin. Who knows? But he's definitely setting up the backdrop for why Bitcoin is so important.
A currency only has value to the extent that someone else wants it. So, for instance, in my bookshelf in my office, I have some paper money in there with Saddam Hussein's face on it. No one wants that money.
Dave is actually bringing up a really interesting point here. He is saying that the value of money is all relative. It's only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. And that is 100% true. Whenever a government changes and a currency gets replaced, the demand for that currency always goes to zero. So he's absolutely right. Bringing up the Iraqi dinar, I thought that was a fantastic example. Obviously, there was a large war in Iraq. Saddam Hussein got ousted from power, and all of the money under him went to zero. So really interesting example. Again, what Dave is doing is he's really highlighting one of the main risks of having your money being controlled or being backed by a specific government, because whenever that government goes away, that money goes away. What that means is that investing or holding money is in general bad because governments go away and get changed all the time. So great job, Dave. You're doing an excellent job explaining a lot of the problems with fiat currency right now. But yeah, overall, I am so surprised with how much I am agreeing with Dave here. He is saying everything right. Low key, I was really expecting to make fun of Dave and talk about how bad his opinions on Bitcoin were. He hasn't really brought up Bitcoin yet, but so far, Dave sounds like a really smart guy, and I'm really surprised with how much I agree with him. Let's see what he says next.
And so today it comes out that one of the big exchange companies for Bitcoin has crashed.
So this video was taken in 2014. I know just by the time he is talking about Mt. Gox. If you don't know, Mt. Gox, the now infamous Bitcoin exchange, it went under and it lost 850,000 Bitcoin. That was worth about $9 billion at the time. With Mt. Gox, a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it taught a lot of people the hard way that they should not store their Bitcoin on exchanges. You need to store your Bitcoin in self-custody. For everybody that used Mt. Gox but was storing their Bitcoin in self-custody, they were completely unaffected. In Bitcoin, we have a saying, not your keys, not your coins. It means basically store your Bitcoins in self-custody. It's really, really important, and it's really, really easy to do. So let's continue on.
And so Bitcoin is very unstable at the moment and looking like it's not going to make it. And what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a currency on the internet.
Okay, there's a lot of things I need to correct Dave on. It is clear he does not understand Bitcoin. Let's start with what he got right. Bitcoin is a currency on the internet. That is true. It is also a lot more than that. I prefer actually not to think of it as just a currency and instead as an entire financial system. The second thing, he said that Bitcoin was unstable and looking like it wasn't going to make it. To be clear, the Bitcoin price at this time was very unstable. Bitcoin as the network was extremely stable. What does that mean exactly? It means that it continued on pumping out new blocks every 10 minutes. There were no crashes on the Bitcoin network. Everything continued working completely fine. So I think it's really important to clarify that while the price went down, the network itself stayed very, very stable. And that's a big difference.
It has no value except to the extent someone else will take it from you as value. Just like that paper has no value. except the extent someone else will take it. So Bitcoin is the Iraqi dinar of the internet.
There's a lot to say about what Dave is saying here. First, Dave is saying that Bitcoin has no value except to the extent that people are willing to take it from you or that people are willing to buy it from you. That is correct. He just established that that is the same with every single money, including the US dollar. So I'm going to, I guess, agree with him that that is true. Next, he's saying that Bitcoin is the Iraqi dinar. And this is where he's really wrong. The Iraqi dinar was a fiat money. It was a government money. And again, the value of government money is all top down. When governments are in charge, they get to decide what is the money in their country. And when those governments get changed or replaced, the new governments step in and they change the money that that country is going to use. It is a top-down system. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is a bottom-up system. There is no governing party that tells anyone that Bitcoin is valuable. People think it's valuable for a number of reasons, but the demand for Bitcoin is all bottom-up. It doesn't need any government to survive. So from that perspective, Bitcoin is absolutely not like the Iraqi dinar. A much better analogy to Bitcoin would be gold. And that is because people value gold in a bottoms-up kind of way. There is no government saying we need to value gold. It is only people that decide amongst themselves that gold is valuable. And Bitcoin is the same way. That is really important to clarify. Dave is very wrong here. I will throw Dave a little bit of a bone that at this time, most people really didn't understand Bitcoin or how it works. So he does get a little bit of leeway. He's talking very confidently about it though, and he is very, very wrong, but that's okay. Let's continue on. I want to see what he says about Bitcoin next.
And I know intelligent people who, while they're intelligent, are not wise, that have put a bunch of money in Bitcoin.
I kind of feel like I'm just picking on Dave right now, but those people that he said were not wise, I think in retrospect turned out to be very wise. Since Dave said this, Bitcoin has done about a 127x return. That is a huge return. In comparison, the S&P 500 in the same amount of time has only done about a 3x return. So the people that Dave is making fun of saying are not wise, it turns out that they were in fact the wise ones, and at least in this case, Dave definitely wasn't.
But it's a really good way to turn $1 million into nothing, to play in unstable currencies that they're, and here's what you have. Let me tell you what Bitcoin is. It's WWW. It's the wild, wild west. You're back to the Western banking system.
Okay, a lot here. So first things first, he's saying that buying Bitcoin is a great way to turn $1 million into nothing. Obviously, that has proven to not be true. In fact, it is quite the opposite. If somebody would have invested $1 million at the date of that video, they would have today about $127 million. So that part, objectively, in retrospect, we can confirm is false. The next thing that he's saying that Bitcoin is the WWW, or the Wild Wild West, all over again. And that is so not true. Remember, the wildcat banks that we were talking about at the beginning of the video, they would issue currencies that they said were backed in gold or backed in silver, and it would always turn out that they never had the gold or the silver that they claimed they have, and people lost a lot of money. With Bitcoin, it actually is the bearer asset that people value, just like gold in the Wild Wild West was the bearer asset that people actually valued. When you have a Bitcoin and you have it in self-custody, you can feel 100% certain that you have the thing that people value. Bitcoin is completely digital. When you have the Bitcoin, you have the item that people want. So in that sense, Bitcoin is not like the old Wild Wild West days at all. The Wild Wild West days, they really require trust. With Bitcoin, it is considered a trustless system. What does that mean? It means that trust is not required. Bitcoin allows you to verify everything yourself. It is 100% transparent. You don't need to trust anybody. You can verifiably prove that everything in the Bitcoin network is accurate and is as you expect it to be. I don't really blame Dave for not understanding the technicals of Bitcoin. Most people, even today, don't understand the technicals of Bitcoin, so I can 100% understand why he doesn't understand it. That's okay. I don't blame him for not understanding Bitcoin. He should start learning about it, though, especially if he's going to continue talking about it, which I believe he has been doing since the time of that video. But that's okay. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt for right now.
Because all of a sudden, one of these computer nerds just flips a switch. The whole freaking thing's gone.
This is just more evidence that Dave has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to Bitcoin. There is nobody that can go ahead and flip the switch and turn Bitcoin off. There is no switch to turn off, and there is no person in charge of Bitcoin in the first place. So he's wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people genuinely thought what Dave was thinking at this point. So again, not going to blame him too much, but he's definitely 100% wrong. That's just not how Bitcoin works.
And so the little hipster techie guys are sitting in front of the building with a sign that says, "Where's my money?" Well, honey, you never had any. It's not real money because it's not a stable currency that has any kind of a system that backs it, that has any kind of a system that protects. Well, I've made a lot of money in Bitcoin.
Dave is completely wrong here. He's saying that Bitcoin has no type of a system that backs it. 100% false. Bitcoin actually has a very rigid system that backs it. What that means is that Bitcoin will, one, always be running, and two, the amount of Bitcoin currency that exists will never be overprinted and never be devalued in the way that government currencies are overprinted and devalued all the time. Let's continue on. I want to see how he finishes this up.
And so I'll go ahead and, I got all you Iraqi dinar people and all you gold people all pissed off at me. So let's just go ahead and add you Bitcoin people to the mix. You're stupid. You're going to lose your money. Be pissed at me.
Amazing video. Well, Dave, I am actually not that pissed off at you. However, I might be pissed off at you if I watched this video 14 years ago and it were the reason that I decided not to invest in Bitcoin at the time. So luckily, that didn't happen. I'm really happy that I got to set the record straight for anybody that might watch this video and think what he's saying is accurate. That being said, he did say a lot of things at the very beginning about the old wildcat banks, and he did a great job explaining a lot of the problems with traditional money and fiat money in general. So, Dave, you actually did a really good job in the first half of this video. As soon as you started talking about Bitcoin, it became very apparent that you had no idea what you're talking about. So I guess it kind of splits it up 50-50. If I had to grade this video, I would say an A for accuracy in the first half, an F in the second half. So I guess maybe it was like a C. Overall, I had a great time reacting to it. If there's a video that you want me to react to next, go ahead and drop a comment down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all the new videos that I come out with. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It was a blast. I'll see you guys for the next one.